Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I'm Jennifer Steinhauer. I direct the public speaker series here at the IOP, and I wanted to give you a special welcome before we let Chelsea introduce all of our guests tonight. I just wanted to say thank you to all of our IOP regulars who came out with a fashion event, and thank you to all of our students who are from MODA, especially a shout out to them. For many of you, I know it's your first IOP event, some of you it's not, but we have tons of other types of content that we offer, and lots of different fellows seminars and career development seminars and other speaker events. So we hope that if this is your first time coming to IOP, we'll see you back. Check our website, and we'll be sure to send you newsletters too with our events. And with that, I will turn it over to Chelsea.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the IOP for the speakers event, Dress Code, the Politics of Style. My name is Chelsea Campbell, and I'm a second year in the college studying economics with a minor in health and society. I'm also on the board of MODA, the premier fashion organization on campus. I'm honored to welcome tonight's distinguished panelists and moderator to discuss women, politics, and fashion over generations. Our panel of guests include the New York Times fashion critic, Vanessa Friedman, former Congresswoman Cheri Bustos, Chicago fashion designer Maria Pinto, and Emmy award-winning costume designer Tom Broecker. Cheri Bustos served as a U.S. representative from Illinois' 17th Congressional District from 2013 to 2023 as a member of the Democratic Party. While she was in office, Mrs. Bustos served as a member of the Congressional Women's Caucus, which aims to improve economic conditions for single working parents. Mrs. Bustos also worked as an investigative journalist for 17 years before becoming a congresswoman. Maria Pinto is a fashion designer and businesswoman from the South Side of Chicago who has designed clothing for Oprah Winfrey, the Jeffrey Ballet, and Michelle Obama. Pinto has won numerous awards, including the Legend of Fashion Award from the School of Art Institute of Chicago and the Anti-Defamation League's Women of Achievement Award in 2009. Our last panelist, Tom Broecker, is a television actor and an Emmy award-winning costume designer. He currently works at Saturday Night Live. He has worked on numerous television shows, such as The House of Cards on Netflix and the first season of The Comeback on HBO. The moderator for tonight's event is Vanessa Friedman. Before becoming the chief fashion critic of the New York Times in 2014, Mrs. Friedman worked at various high-profile publications, such as the Financial Times, Vanity Fair, American Vogue, and The New Yorker. Mrs. Friedman is widely acclaimed for her direct and intellectual critique on the fashion industry, as well as her commentary on the socio-political ramifications of the role of fashion in society. As a reminder, please silence and turn off your cell phone for the duration of the event. For the Q&A, a stationary microphone will be placed in the audience, with the first 3 questions going to students. Be sure to mark your calendars for the upcoming speaker event titled The Opioid Crisis Redux, What the Government Can and Is Doing, which will take place tomorrow, April 4th at 5:30 p.m. in Illinois. Then on Monday, April 10th at 12 p.m., there will be a discussion about the future of TikTok. That event will take place at the IOP House and food will be served. Finally, the IOP's career development team is encouraging students to take advantage of internships they have available in the policy, politics, journalism, and nonprofits. Find out more on the IOP's website. The deadline for most of these opportunities is Sunday. Please join me in welcoming our guests and moderator to the stage.
Hi. Can you guys hear me? You know, I was told there was no particular dress code for this event, but I feel like something's going on here. Not sure quite what it's saying, but it's definitely saying something. Because clothes always are, right? They are the way we signal to the world who we are. And this has been true since Cleopatra, right? It was true of Napoleon. It was true of Queens Elizabeth I and II. It was true of Nelson Mandela. But it's especially true now in a world where social media makes every moment a potential moment of public judgment. And this is true for no one so much as people in the public eye, especially politicians. And I've been writing about this since at least Obama versus Romney in 2012. I've written about the image-making choices of, in no particular order, the Obamas, the Trumps, the Bidens, Hillary Clinton, Tulsi Gabbard, Eric Adams, Emmanuel Macron, Bridget Macron, Boris Johnson, Narendra Modi, Vladimir Putin, Kristen Sinema, Paul Pritzker. You get the idea. And every time I do it, no matter what gender I'm writing about, no matter what person, no matter what party, I get one of the following reactions. You idiot.
Oh, gosh.
Why are you writing about this? Who cares? What politicians wear is not a fitting subject for the New York Times. It is like death and taxes. It is so predictable. And every time I get that reaction, I want to say to the person, okay, let me ask you a different question. Is how a politician communicates a fitting subject for the New York Times? Is how they attempt to manipulate your perception of who they are and what they stand for something we all should be thinking about? And if I were to ask you that question, what would you say?
Yeah.
Yes, of course, of course. Of course we should be thinking about that. And that is why I'm so excited about this conversation, because I really believe this is something we all need to talk about and talk about openly. And the more we do that, the smarter we're going to be. So Cheri, I want to start with you.
All right.
Talk to me a little bit about, what the kind of prevailing wisdom was about fashion when you first got into politics and how you were supposed to be thinking about it.
All right, so I'll lay the foundation just a little bit. So wonderful introduction. Good job. You pronounced everybody's name correctly. I haven't been called Mrs. Bustos in a long time, so. So I was a journalist for most of my career, and I can tell you dress very nicely for a journalist. I don't know too many journalists who are really great dressed. I was a print journalist, so you show up with your pad of paper and your pencil, and you're off. And then I transitioned. I actually worked in healthcare for a little while before I ran for office. And when I was first running, I always remembered that phrase: dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. So I pictured, Vanessa, a person in office, a congresswoman. And I thought, that she would wear nice suits and be very well put together, wear nice shoes. And so that's what I thought. Now, the district that I represented for the last 10 years, I just left office. By the way, I've never lost an election. So I left on my own, which I'm proud of that. But so I just left on January 3rd of this year. And so my fashion evolved over time. But at the time when I was first running, it was 2011 when I first announced. And the district I represent is in downstate Illinois, so very rural, 14 counties, 7,000 square miles, 9,600 family farms. All right, so that gives you an idea. County fairs in all 14 counties. And when you're running for office, you go to these county fairs. So I look back at these pictures. I would wear suits. In fact, I wore a white suit to the very first county fair that I went to. So, and kind of like, I'm athletic and I have kind of muscular legs. I was a college basketball player, and so I had kind of this short, tight, white skirt and a white jacket. It all matched, and high heels. I mean, and then I look back and I'm like, what in the heck was I thinking? But that is what I was thinking, and we had this conversation backstage a little bit about, do you dress for the job that you want? Which was fine, but I was like picturing myself on the House floor as opposed to like just being out with people. And I look at that as really kind of a misstep. I think it's fine if you were in a business setting, but when you're going to the county fair, I should have worn my jeans, my boots, a t-shirt, because it's always in the summer. And I actually think that would have been more appropriate.
This is funny because I wrote a piece about Paul Pritzker, right? Because he has apparently on his agenda every day, his aides put notes about what he should be wearing depending on where he's going. So it's like, wear the fleece, wear the suit, Wear the tie.
I wear the Carhartt jacket. And,
Right.
You guys remember when Bruce Rauner was our governor? Do you remember not a lot of you maybe are actually from Illinois, but he would wear a Carhartt jacket, but he was made fun of because it had like no wrinkles in it. You know, so it's kind of like, if you're gonna wear that, you know, like be real about it, because that like didn't seem real.
So did you have any role models that you were looking at, or was it just sort of like the abstract Congresswoman?
At the time, it was more the abstract, but I will tell you this, having served for 10 years in Congress, one of the jobs I had, I ran the political arm of House Democrats. It's called the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. So I traveled all over the country with Nancy Pelosi, because she was Speaker of the House and the greatest Democratic fundraiser in the history of our nation. We actually raised $1/3 billion in that cycle. But the good part about that job was every fly-in day, and that was like you fly in from your home district to Washington, D.C. before you vote. My first meeting of the week was always a 30-minute meeting one-on-one with Nancy Pelosi. And I would say, you know, she is a different generation. She's an older generation than I am. But I think she has just beautiful style. I love her dresses. I mean, she's worth a heck of a lot more money than I am. I could not afford the clothes that she wears, but I think she's a beautiful dresser. And if you want to look at a couple other members of Congress, some of them are not household names who I think dress beautifully. There's a woman named Susie Lee from from Nevada, from the Las Vegas area. I think she's a beautiful dresser. You mentioned Kyrsten Sinema. She has a unique style. Funny, really quick side story. So Kyrsten and I were elected the same year in the class of 2012. And she's a marathoner, but she had lost a bunch of weight. And so she was getting rid of her clothes. And I'm like, what are you doing with those clothes? And she's like, I'll sell them to you. So keep in mind, she's single. She makes $174,000 a year, because that's what every member of the House and Senate make. And she never wears the same outfit twice in any given year. Did you know that about her?
I did not.
She doesn't wear the same outfit twice in any given year. So when she changed sizes, she said you could pick out whatever you want, and you could have for $50. And now I'm telling you, I don't know designers, because I'm from Springfield, Illinois. I don't know designers. And so she had all these designer things, and I got a bunch of her clothes. So like the nicest clothes I own were Kyrsten Sinema's clothes.
All right, so Tom, are you actually the secret designer behind Kyrsten, the SNL Kyrsten Sinema's clothes?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so how do you go about deciding what she's going to wear?
Well, I mean, on SNL, we generally will do our research in terms of like the visual imagery of what that, and if we are specifically doing that, if we're parodying that particular thing that week or something that is specific to, you know, some conference or some talk that they were doing, then we will try as best we can to match the outfit based upon the image. Sometimes we can match it perfectly. Sometimes we make it up. Sometimes it doesn't really matter. Sometimes the event took place or whatever, or there is an image that I particularly find interesting, so we want to match the image. I find a dress that she has worn that she has, well, I don't know, well, her style is crazy. So just sort of in terms of just its color and shape and everything about it. So I just look at it and go, oh, that one makes me laugh, so let's do that one. But, you know, when you are doing a politician, you tend to want to match it specifically to that person. And so we have gone through and jumped through hoops to get the correct image. I know when Kerry Washington was on, and she was playing Michelle Obama, Michelle had worn a Tracy Reese dress. I knew which Tracy Reese dress it was, so I called Tracy Reese. We got the specific dress. Jen Psaki did a specific thing that we were doing on a press conference that we had to do. It was a dress that she had gotten from Rent the Runway. I knew someone who was president of Rent the Runway. We called them. They opened their warehouse in New Jersey on a Saturday, so we could get the dress. So we, on SNL, we try and at least match the specific to that. Sometimes with the men, we paint their ties so that they match.
Really?
Specifically because fashion and style are sort of different sometimes, and particularly with men, they have ties which are 15 years old or 10 years old, or they don't come from Jose Banks yesterday, so we end up having to make our own stripes or our own dots or to match.
So how different was it going from a fictional administration in House of Cards to trying to actually imitate the real thing? And which ones do you think looked better?
Well, I mean, the Obama administration looked amazing, but House of Cards for me was an incredible jump just because I had been doing a lot of comedy, so I was given the chance to actually create something and work with. We can talk about Kevin, but Kevin is less interesting to me than Robin was, and so Robin basically, she and I were having talks. David didn't really say, Fincher, the director, didn't say a lot about Robin, other than. I know a lot of people have written about it, but that she was the Lady Macbeth of that. My basic MO with Robin in that particular thing was I wanted to get away from the idea that women had to wear pants to compete with men. That was if I got nothing else for people to see, I wanted them to see that someone could be powerful and that they could be feminine, and they didn't have to wear pants to compete with men, and could have the power, and they didn't have to do that. Now, Robin wasn't in politics at the time, or Claire wasn't in politics at the time, so it was a little easier to sort of maneuver that, but she still had to be toe-to-toe in her power with her husband. And whatever that was going to be, that, and on some way, if a character is pure to its form, then the evil will be that much greater and can be seen better.
That's, I think, a good segue to you, Maria, because one of the things that I thought was so wonderful about Michelle Obama when she became First Lady is she really did change the paradigm of what First Ladies were supposed to wear, right? I mean, something we had talked about is like up until that point, like it was a skirt suit, right? They all wore a skirt suit, maybe a pantsuit, but there was always a jacket involved. And Michelle Obama really was a dress person. She wore dresses, she wore your dresses. And how conscious was that and how important was that, do you think?
I think it was kind of interesting what you said about campaign. Well, when she was beginning the campaign trail, and she would come in and say, I'm going to Iowa, and next week I'm going to New York, and there was a whole consciousness of like, okay, Iowa, you're going to play it down. New York, you're going to step it up. Your fashion. As far as like the lack of jacket, to be honest, there was like no real conversation about it. I just think she wanted. I thought she just looked amazing in this kind of sleek, minimal, which is kind of my aesthetic anyway, and we embraced that and ran with it.
And the sleeveless thing?
The sleeveless thing especially. It's kind of a loaded gun when you say things like, she had great arms, why not show them? And again, it was just like, just a beautiful, clean. And I think also it's like not having clothes that are in the way, right? Like you want to walk into a room not thinking about what you're wearing. You've got a lot of other things to be focusing on. So the clothes should be so easy. So like you don't have to think.
Cheri, how radical was that? How much of a different statement was that?
Oh, I think we loved it. Absolutely loved it. She came to my district once and campaigned for me, and it's kind of interesting. So anybody here from Moline, Illinois? Anybody ever been to Moline, Illinois? All right, one. It's a town of about a little less than 40,000 people along the Mississippi River. It's where I lived for most of my adult life. And she came in and campaigned for me and some other Democrats who were running. And I was really curious as to what she was going to wear. And she wore kind of like this, it almost looked like a sweatsuit. Like as you look back at it, and I remember thinking, wow, that is not what I was expecting her to wear. But I'm thinking, it's kind of like fits in Moline, Illinois. But no, I think that as far as it being radical, I think we just watched her in awe. I loved how she dressed. All my friends loved how she dressed. For that matter, I mean, I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I think Melania Trump dressed beautifully too. I think that the outfit that she wore at the inauguration, I was there for the inauguration, and I just thought that blue, I just think was absolutely stunning. But no, I think we loved watching what Michelle Obama was wearing.
I mean, that blue, interesting, the Melania Trump outfit was very reminiscent of a Jackie Kennedy outfit, right? I mean, it was almost a kind of direct, not copy, but reference to that, which was, I mean, to me, clearly an attempt to kind of frame what she thought it would mean to be a first lady.
A little bit different from Jackie Kennedy, but.
But do you think, like, I mean, to me, like, there is no way that hadn't been thought through, it seems to me. Like, I really don't believe that she was just like, oh, that's pretty, I'll wear that.
Yeah, maybe you guys would know.
She was
Deliberate.
It was very deliberate, very. I mean, I think, because to sort of your thing, you have to always understand, and what you were saying too earlier is like, you have to understand the place and the image that it's going to create. And those two things you have an opportunity to make whole or to separate. So you can either lead with the person and the person can be in harmony, or the person can be out of harmony. And the falseness, people see that, and particularly now and with social media and everything, I think people see the falseness of the image and can see that it is a costume that politician is putting on, that is, they're trying to get some sort of reaction or image for them. But the people that they represent will understand that is false.
I mean, you're playing to an audience, right?
Correct.
I mean, it is
Politics
a show.
is performance.
It's theater.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And the costumes matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do think there's something I'm actually interested in all of your opinions on. I think there is a tendency to pretend this is not true. To pretend that, yes, I just woke up this morning and, blindly grabbed something out of my closet and tossed it on and went to work. And, my mind is on much higher things. And I think your mind can be on higher things. But, one of the things I most respected, one of the many, many things I most respected from Barack Obama was when he very happily answered Michael Lewis's question for a Vanity Fair profile about like how he picked his clothing. And he said, I only wear dark blue suits or dark gray suits because I have so many decisions to make every day that I wanted to reduce one of the variables, and this was a very easy variable to reduce. So he wasn't saying he didn't think about it. He said, this is how I think about it. And that to me is a really important and useful distinction. So I think, like, how do you feel about, someone saying they don't think about clothing at all? Would you say I never think about clothing?
Maybe the designers.
So,
I think the people that say it maybe should.
right. But I also, I say this about everyone, even everyone who wears clothes and leaves the house. You are subconsciously or unconsciously making decisions when you open that closet door to what you put on and what you are going to reflect to the world outside. You may not be aware of it, but the people who are walking towards you are judging you and seeing you and making instant ideas about who you are.
You're
based
making that
upon
judgment right now about all of us, right?
About what you are wearing. And it is, clothing is performative. Like, it can't help but be. So you have to understand ultimately what you're doing. And it could be as like, I don't care and clothes don't mean anything to me. And that could be your thing. And that is equally a valid opinion, but just know that other people are actually making judgment about that. And that's also what politics is. There's never, and every actor every actor who has walked a red carpet or done an interview or whatever, every actor now has a stylist. 15 years ago, that did not happen at all. There probably actors were much more, oh, this is my closet, this is what I do, I just put this on. But now everything is an Instagrammable moment. So everything is going to be seen and judged, and that image then, what I wear is reflective of what I am doing and who I am.
You know what's interesting about that? Raise your hand if you ever want to run for office. I would think there would be more at University of Chicago. Raise them higher. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So interesting what you were saying though. That is that at all levels? The entertainers, they have these stylists. Like even if you're like just starting out. Okay. So for the people who want to run, you don't do that in politics. Like we don't have anybody who tells us how to dress, and so much so that at my very first debate. It was in 2012, and it was still in the primary, and I wear a green suit. All right, you might not think one way or another about it. However, we didn't ask in advance what was the backdrop, what was the lighting. We didn't look at what it would look like under the lighting or with the backdrop. So this was televised live, and within 1 minute. My husband, who was in the audience, was getting texts from our family, my sister-in-law, saying, "Is Cheri sick?" Because this green made me look like I was sick.
No. Sorry, when was this?
This was in 2012.
And you don't think it's changed since then?
Well, what I'm saying, like, I didn't have anybody who advised me not to wear that. I didn't have anybody who advised me to make sure I knew what the backdrop was. So when you are running, even at the congressional level, that usually doesn't come with what you start with. Michelle Obama had somebody awesome like Maria because she was First Lady. But when you are running for whether it's Congress, it might be better now, like if you're getting to the Senate level or something. But we don't have advisors. The best person I had ever been involved with, I went through a training program that Dick Durbin's wife started called the Illinois Women's Institute for Leadership. And part of that was we went to Washington, D.C., and we had this woman who would look at what we were wearing, how we were delivering our speeches, and do this critique. And there was one woman in our group who this is in front of everybody. She was the most brutally frank person, and she said, when you come back here, you need to change your makeup. Your clothes look like they're from the 1980s. You need a new haircut. But most people in life are not that brutal. And I would say that was a blessing that we were exposed to this woman who was, I think, kind enough in an unkind way to tell us that we needed to dress better and do our makeup better and cut our hair and that sort of thing. But most of us don't have somebody like that in our lives that will tell us that what you're wearing really doesn't look so great.
I actually feel like a lot of the people I talk to now do have kind of informal advisors, whether they are, people with stores, boutique owners, designers, or just, strategic consultants. And strategic consultants are now playing the part of fashion consultants. I mean, I talked to one guy who was a political crisis manager, actually worked with the Clintons, and he said, the amount of time I've spent talking to different candidates about their tie choices, when we could have been talking about the peace process, like you would not believe this. So I do think that increasingly, it may not be a formal stylist role in politics, but that a lot of strategists are playing that part because it has become such an important part of platforming who you are.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that. But when you're running for school board, probably ain't happening. Just so you know.
Tom, did you want to add something to that?
Well, no, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of. I mean, I've been asked to comment on certain politicians and had to.
Who?
I had to sign an NDA. So I mean, I would say, but I did have to sign an NDA, and it was very like, this person was beginning to run, and I knew someone who knew them, and they were like, this person can use some help, and can you talk to them? And so I had to help the person sort of look at their, going back to your backdrop, and they were starting to do their zooming and their stuff, and I would be looking at their backdrop, and I'm like, your backdrop, what you're showing the world, it's too cluttered. We can't see you. You have to get rid of this. You have to do this. Your shirts don't. What your shirt is saying is so much more, and and so it goes back to that thing, particularly now, I think in the last 10 years with social media, there has become an awareness at any given moment, it's a photo op. It just is simply, that's the way life is.
Absolutely.
I mean, every waking moment, children or 15-year-olds and high schoolers are living their life through their phone. Mm-hmm. I'm working on another project right now, which is about young high school kids, and literally that is all we talk about is, what do the people on TikTok and Instagram wear? And what are these women wearing in high school, and how does it represent what they're doing? And also though, but social media also doesn't have a reality to it. Social media only exists on some level. TikTok and Instagram fashion and that look is specific to those platforms. If you take that out of those platforms and wear it down the street, there is a little bit of like, wait, that person lives in a TikTok world. They don't live in the world of Chicago, Illinois. It is a very interesting disconnect, I think, sometimes.
Maria, do you get asked by clients to give them advice about how they should present themselves?
Quite often. And, that's part of I love designing clothes, right? That's first and foremost. But I also like helping someone traverse through, like, what is it that you're trying to say about yourself?
Right.
And I'd say start now. Like, whether you're running for politics or you plan to have a great job when you finish here, whatever it is, you're going to have to present yourself. So it's kind of a nice time to start considering that. But yeah, I enjoy that. And I also enjoy pushing the envelope for people, helping them see themselves in a way that maybe they didn't come in thinking that they could pull off.
And that's the interesting sort of, she does it for real people. I do it on Saturday Night Live, I do it for a real person as in the host, but also at the same time in a theatrical way in television, you help a person create a character based on a text or some sort of thing that's giving you the information to create that character, and then you pull from more things generally than just a single person in terms of what, but it always goes back to, what do I want to say?
Right.
What do I represent, and what am I trying to say by what I'm doing and what I'm wearing?
Okay, so speaking of creating characters and things you want to say, Cheri, you have some pictures that you have contributed that say certain things. Do we want to show them? And you could do some interpretation.
What are they showing? Oh, okay. I told you we have 9,600 family farms in the district I represented. And we're also the world headquarters for John Deere, so it's a green combine in that picture, right? It's not a tractor even, by the way. Do you guys know that? You know what a combine is? No, totally. I did something for the 10 years I was in office. We called it Cheri on Shift. My name is Cheri, so it goes with shift. But I job shadowed people. I did 120 of these. I did everything from processing carp out of the Mississippi River to changing a street bulb 30 feet up in a cherry picker to driving a combine to driving a UPS truck, sacking groceries, whatever. I did 120 of these all together. And so if you want to show that other picture when I'm on a hog farm, you guys have that one maybe? So this is one of them, but on any given day, I might go from a hog farm to a library to a news conference to a fundraiser. And so part of the other thing is it's not like, could I wear that, if that hog picture's still up there? I couldn't very well wear that to a fundraiser. right? And not only that, anybody ever been to a hog farm? It does not smell pretty. And it literally oozes into your clothes. I kid you not. That's why you have to wear that outfit over it, that white suit over it. But so on any given day, I will have to change clothes, and so you have to plan for that. But I did get better at that over the years. Back in the day, I would have worn just one outfit. And I would have just said, okay, I'm going to hog farm, then I'm going to go to this boat, and then I'm going to go, and I would have just had one outfit. But my scheduler knew over time that you got to be there in the moment, and again, I think people can spot phonies a mile away. I just think most of us know when somebody's just insincere or whatever. So back to the Bruce Rauner wearing the ironed Carhartts, it's like, so the one where I'm by the combine, those are actually my real clothes. I didn't have to borrow any clothes. I have boots, I have jeans, I have flannel shirts. That's really kind of more like how I dress than you look awesome. Like that's just, I would never even know, I would not know how to put that together. But that is also the reality of being in politics, is you're gonna be in a lot of different settings, and how do you dress so you don't stand out. So I think the goal was actually more to blend in.
Hey, Maria, we're going to go to your pictures quickly. Maybe you can talk about how that relates to this idea of like blending in, or to, dressing for the setting.
So is this the blue dress?
This says purple dress for the Obamas.
So this was the night that they announced, and the bump. Oh, yeah. And I think we were just really thinking color, but not anything, and it's like a magenta. So it's not like a political color. It's just a beautiful color, and she wore color well. And the shape, that's like Michelle's strength, those kind of silhouettes. So it was just like, again, it's like the ease and being sort of, I advocate this for all of our clothes. I don't care if you're running for politics, in politics, if you're a student, if you're a faculty person, if you're just someone who's living a life as a journalist. It's like your clothes should, feel comfortable. They take some time you have to invest some time to consider what to have. And most of what we did was we created a wardrobe that was there, and then it was kind of like, okay, this night came up, I think this is the right dress. Like the dress for the DNC, it's this beautiful smoky turquoise color. And it seemed like kind of perfect. We had a 3/4 sleeve, and it wasn't like a hard decision about like, okay, let's not wear sleeveless because you're gonna be speaking. It was just like, this is what she felt she would feel her best self to handle that kind of moment. You're giving a speech like that, right? Do you really want to think about this? No. And you want to not have the negative results the next day where people are so ripping and judgmental.
Okay, well, I have one final question, and then we're going to go to you guys' questions. This is partly about where things are going, because I think we're at this funny moment in our culture, in our politics, where on the one hand you do have Kyrsten Sinema, who's broken pretty much every dress code rule that has ever existed, not just in the Capitol, but in like most workplaces, about what you can and can't wear. She's worn like jeans jackets and message tees and sleeveless this and wigs and everything. And on the other hand, you have state legislatures like the one in Missouri, I think, and Florida, where increasingly these old dress codes that have been sort of on the books but no one has paid attention to have been brought back, saying now that female legislators must have jackets or cardigans, their arms have to be covered, their skirts have to be a certain length. It really feels like we're sort of going back 20 years. So you've got this growing conservative dress code movement that falls heavily on women. And then you have this kind of federal moment to break out of that. So which one of those do you think is going to win? Which way are we going? Cheri, do you want to start?
I think Tom should.
Well, the one that I hope or the one that I fear?
Both.
It truly is that I think is the dilemma of all of it is, my issue is, why are men telling women how to dress?
Thank you.
That would be where I would start.
Yeah, Good answer.
The audacity.
Good answer.
Yeah. There's no reason why, anyone should be telling anyone else to dress.
Great answer.
And yet they are.
And yet they are. Well, and
are,
that's,
so-
but that also, going back to politics though, that is reflective of the state or the city or the county you live in. And unfortunately, I think the way in which the world is going, it just means you either have to live in that county and know why you're living there and what to change that and get into politics to change that, or you go, this place doesn't hold my ideals, so I need to not be here. I need to be somewhere and in a place which does hold what I believe in.
I would say in Washington, it's getting a little more casual. Like you see the men wear, what are those shoes called now that are kind of dressy on top, but they look like they're white on the bottom? I don't know if there's a name for those.
They're like Kohan.
Yeah, like a lot of the guys wear those with suits now. The guys still have to wear ties on the floor, on the House floor, and the Senate floor. But when I first started, it was not, you were not supposed to wear sleeveless dresses. And they didn't change the rules, but we just said, no, we're gonna wear sleeveless dresses. And they didn't, it was against the rules, but we decided to do that. I was thinking when you're talking about Kyrsten Sinema's outfits and stuff, the clothes that I got from her were normal. They were, because I know like you've seen a lot of her fashions, but she also has some really beautiful clothes, and I like almost always wear a jacket over them also. So,
Maria, where do you think things are going?
I'd like to be optimistic that women will get to a point where they make their own choices.
Yeah, you guys are like all so much more optimistic than me. Like I'm clearly like cynical journalist.
You're so New York.
I was convinced that this was like a strategic plot, and they were going to start like seeding dress codes in state houses all over the country.
No.
Like rise up.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I hope you're right.
It would just be so weird. Yeah.
I hope you're right. All right, questions from the audience. Is there a microphone, or are we just, well, the microphone is coming.
Is Vanessa supposed to call on people, or how do you guys do this here?
They have
Okay.
to stand
All
up
right.
and everyone has to stand up and go to the microphone.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Hi, my name's Alexis, and now I'm feeling very judged for what I'm wearing right now. I'm a
You look
med
awesome.
student here. Thank you. So I have a question. I was on the debate team in high school, and something I was told was that the women or girls should dress more like men and speak in lower voices, and the men should dress more like women, or like have pastels or things associated with femininity and speak in a higher voice. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on how like gender is like leveraged to facilitate or take away power from different groups.
Who wants to take that?
I think you should, Vanessa.
Oh, no, you're the experts.
Didn't touch that one.
All right, I'll try and explore it, because it's a conversation I've sort of have been having just in general, is to clothing, does clothing have gender? And I think clothing as an inanimate thing doesn't have gender, that the person causes the clothing to have gender. So, and currently I think there's particularly amongst the younger people, there's an exploration into what gender identity is, and the ability to sort of be open to, I want to wear a dress because I feel like it's going to make me feel pretty, or it's just easier, so I'm going to put on a dress if I'm a guy, to allow myself to express something in me, because that ultimately is what clothes are for, correct? Besides being not naked, that it is a way to express oneself. So and should be reflective of one's inner life or external life, and so it's a way of encompassing one's totality as a human being. And so I think, but going back to your question about someone telling you that as a woman you should do this and a man you should do that, which is sort of switch those two things, that person who is probably a teacher should probably not be telling you those things, but should allow the person to be expressive of their own individuality.
In politics, do you think that would work?
I think in politics you get judged much more harshly for that. I mean, I feel like AOC is sort of doing a little bit of the pushing a little bit, sort of in terms of like her, not necessarily of her thing, but she is more vocal in terms of expressing herself, I think, a little bit more than perhaps some of the other. And I think the younger politicians perhaps don't adhere to the older politicians as much. And so I think as the world becomes younger and our government becomes younger, perhaps the old ideas of what is acceptable can be pushed to the side. Because because the reality is you want to just hire people who are good at their jobs and can push forward some sort of idea, right? I mean, that's ultimately what you want your politicians.
You know, there are studies on this, though. Women are judged more harshly. Women in public office are judged more harshly than men. What they wear, what their voices are. Do you ever hear anybody tell a man that his voice is shrill?
No.
Women are judged for how they sound and how they look a lot more harshly. And if you're a woman of color, it's even the judgment is even tougher. And it is why, since 2011, I have not read the comments on social media. I post stuff, but I don't read the comments. And because I used to go home every night and I'd complain to my husband, oh my gosh, I can't believe what these people are saying. Why would they say this kind of thing? And he said, after about a month, he said, is that making you a better candidate? Is that making you a better person? Will that make you a better Congresswoman by reading this? And I said, no, no, no to all of that. And then so I have not looked at any of that since 2011. And it is why, like, I'm pretty self-assured and I don't worry about that kind of thing.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then I promise it will be your turn. I'm sorry. Do you think it would make a difference if we were all more comfortable talking about clothes? You know, because I do think that men talk about clothes pretty easily, and they're totally de-weaponized for them. And it is used such a kind of strategic attack tool for women, and women as a result become very defensive about it and don't want to talk about it. I mean, literally every time I ask the East Wing Communications Office any question about Jill Biden's clothes, you know, they're like, oh, she never thinks about that. We don't want to communicate on that. I'm like, oh, you got to, I mean, she literally wore something that had the word love on the back. It's like she's thinking about it.
Yeah, they're
Deliberate.
it's deliberate.
Did Michelle Obama talk about it?
They were better at like releasing information.
Okay.
So every time she wore something in a real public event, they would release the information. So even if she wasn't making a statement, at least you knew what she was wearing.
Well, and she liked to help designers, right? She liked to highlight her designers. Yeah. And which probably helped your career, which, you know, pretty nice.
Because she knew, like, if everyone is looking at her and asking her the question, she might as well use it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that goes back to your Melania Trump
Right.
blue suit.
Right.
Nothing in politics is not unstudied.
But it's also kind
Not
of
at that level.
ridiculous to think that, okay, if I talk about what I'm wearing, it's making me seem less serious about what I'm
Right.
doing.
Yes.
When in fact, it's really not. I
Right.
mean,
In fact, it makes you approachable, right? I mean, like,
Correct.
clothing
Yes.
is one of the few things that everyone can relate to at a certain level. You know, one of the most brilliant things Hillary Clinton did, I think, when she became a candidate was actually start joking about her clothes instead of kind of pushing back about it. And it immediately made her, like, it took that away as a weapon.
Right.
And it was fun.
Well, this is a younger crowd, but when Nancy Reagan used to be criticized, though, for all the money she spent on her clothes. So I think there's probably also that. I can tell you, politicians don't want to be viewed as being wealthy either,
Right.
or elitist. So that could be part of it, as far as not talking about it, and maybe why Jill Biden doesn't talk about it. Somebody will look up and say, oh, that dress cost $500, that's more than I make in a month or something.
But they're also leaders of our country, and they should represent us in a beautiful way. So I don't really care if they spend $5,000 on the dress, whatever they, or however they acquire it.
You're a designer.
They're representing.
But there are
us.
people who would care.
Correct.
But
I'm just saying
but I feel that's different for the president and the first lady than it is
Yeah,
with,
right. Yeah. Very
someone
different.
in state level.
But Nancy Reagan was
I remember.
beaten up about that.
But they also, that was part of what they represented, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
the Reagans were
Right.
pushing that kind of very high-end aspirational
Right.
lifestyle. So in attacking her clothes, they were also attacking the value system that they were
Yeah.
Correct.
platforming.
But that goes back to what you were saying too, though, is that women are always judged
Right.
much harsher than men.
Okay,
Men, you have pants and a jacket.
question to the very patiently waiting questioner.
Often the fashion that gets picked up most in the media is usually like the most distinct outfits or the ones that showcase like a specific color or something like that. And I'm wondering how, when you're in office, you balance using fashion as a tool, cultivating that kind of style, wearing distinct outfits with the notion of being taken seriously for your job, or actually like the functional aspects of what you're doing, and how you balance that, or is that not really a concern at all?
Well, so if you want to see where thought is put into the color, take a look at the State of the Unions over the last States of the Union over the past several years. We as Democrats, a lot of the women, we would talk a few weeks in advance because a lot of our clothes are at home and you got to bring it out to Washington, and we want to make sure that we would have the right color. But we would talk about the year that all the women wore white. That was what the anniversary of women's right to vote, I think that was what that was. But we made a decision that we were all going to wear white. And there was another year where my closest friends, it was our first State of the Union, and we decided we were all going to wear pink. And it was just like we were all best friends and we were all women, and we were going to highlight that. But so you can look at different years and we pick out a color scheme, but it's very rarely, well, I guess white is not really a bright color, but we kind of like to stand out at the State of the Union because I would always have my friends send me a text saying, hey, what are you wearing tonight so I can watch for you on TV? And so a lot of the women you will see don't wear just, like a dark, but like a black or navy or gray. A lot of the women will wear color, especially when you're going to be on a program where a lot of your friends are going to see you or a lot of people back home are going to see you. As far as the colors that we wear, it'll either tie into some event. My campaign color was purple, and that was very intentional. And that was because I was a Democrat in a Trump district. That's actually very rare. When I left, there were only 3 of us who won in 16, 18, and 20 from Democrats from Trump districts. So very early on, because I came from a swing district, I picked purple as my color. 1, because not a lot of guys pick it, and number 2, it's red and blue coming together. So it was actually a reason for it.
I think this is actually a really interesting point because, we tend to think about the fact that women have all these different kind of options with clothing as a problem, right? Like there's too many, like how do you know what to choose, and people are judging you, and da-da. But in fact, it also is an advantage, right? Because it allows you so much more, options depending on what your kind of strategy is than if you're a man, right? Where you're just like, you can play with your tie color, you can play with your socks.
Right.
That's kind of it.
And the guys would even say that. They would have, what was it, seersucker Wednesdays or something, right, where the guy, that was like the only way they could actually show their style. Do you guys know what seersucker is? Yeah, but other than that, and President Obama wearing the tan suit, it's like, they wear navy and black and gray. Yeah, it's a good point.
Hi, my name is Joel. Thank you for speaking to us today. I was just wondering, as you all have pretty public-facing roles and the decisions you make, either with what you're putting on people or what you're wearing, have like ramifications. Have you ever felt that there was a time where you faced criticism for a decision that you made, and how have you navigated dealing with that or having those discussions?
Yeah, I had somebody tell me that I dressed like a waitress. Because maybe I was dressing like a waitress, I don't know. Yeah, I also, we opened our campaign headquarters, it was our very first campaign headquarters, and where I'm from, we get press for everything. I have 3 media markets where the district that I represented, and they would turn out to everything we did. It was easy to get press coverage. And we were opening a new campaign headquarters, and I wore this kind of turquoise dress that was, what are those called where like they button all the way down?
Shirt dress?
Shirt dress, it was a shirt dress. And it was cotton, it was kind of a hot day, and it was cotton. And that picture was in the paper the next day, and I just remember thinking, why didn't somebody tell me not to wear that? And I was made fun of for this dress because, first of all, it was wrinkled. It was like completely wrinkled, like from head to toe wrinkled. It was ugly. It didn't fit me. It was like just absolutely hideous all the way around. But those are those moments where you get made fun of, that you just kind of think you want people in your inner circle, like Maria, who would tell you.
I would take care of you.
Yeah, you would make sure that somebody didn't look horrible, right?
At least in my opinion.
Yeah, well, but obviously you're a designer, and Tom, you would tell somebody if they looked horrible, wouldn't you?
No, Tom would be like, oh, this is perfect for my next
Exactly. It's fashion. You must wear that.
But you
But that's the thing, but going back to your thing, and we were talking a little bit about that too. I think your harshest critic is yourself generally. And or if I'm dressing someone, I have insecurity about dressing people. Like every person I ever dress, I have insecurity about. Like, because you're trying to help that person either through a character or self or whatever, to come up with something which is going to represent an idea, an image, a photo op or something, and that you have to marry whatever it is, the thought that person is having, with some sort of image to make them feel and be great. And sometimes they can lead with themselves, sometimes you can lead with the text, but it's always, it's like anything. You're like, I come from a place of insecurity about that, just because that helps the dialogue happen with that person, and help you to, the dialogue, as long as you're communicating about it, I think then that gets you and will allow you to come up with some sort of idea.
Next question.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much. This has been so exciting. My name is Kate. I'm a second year in the college. And earlier this fall, I took a class that's required for my major. I'm studying public policy, where it's called Politics and Policy. And we spent a large portion of the quarter thinking about public opinion and the mechanics that get certain candidates elected. And my professor referenced a paper that found empirically across the board being overweight reduces a candidate's chances of being elected, but being overweight for women in particular, empirically, statistically, reduces their chances significantly more than men. So I was wondering if any of you could speak to fat phobia in the political world, and also just the different ways that women in particular, women candidates in particular, use fashion to sort of navigate the disproportionate pressures that they face in relation to their figures. Thank you.
Maria, do you want to talk about how you help people navigate that?
I just think you have to find your best self, and clothes can help you get there. I mean, I think people can be quite cruel about all kinds of things, weight, whatever it is. You're not pretty enough, you're not this enough. I think it's a lot of self-image work, first of all, that you have to own, no matter what size you are. And I think just, finding your best self. And, we talked about this earlier. It's like, okay, we could talk about investing in a dress, right? The cost of a dress. But the bigger investment is investing a little bit of time in really studying yourself and looking at clothes and what are your things. Everyone has a few things that really look great on them. And then there's more. But if you find that foundation of things, you kind of have this core, almost want to call it a uniform, this safe zone. At least that would get you to a certain point, right? Mm-hmm. An investment of owning, what really does look good on you. We have a store in the West Loop, happy to help you. But I know it's hard to find, but there are resources. As as Vanessa said, you know, there are small boutiques that can help guide you. There are stylists, there are good friends that maybe dress well. They may not necessarily know how to dress you, but sometimes they can help you out.
But I'll say this, the first investment has to be in yourself. Because if you, as a person, it doesn't matter what size or shape you are, it has to come from internally for you. And then if that then comes forth, I have seen gorgeous women in all different sizes, in all different shapes, wear crop tops, not wear crop tops, wear full-length dresses, short, whatever. But they feel good in what it is that they're wearing, so that then is reflective in what they do and the image that they're putting forth. And as soon as then someone who feels great and amazing, it doesn't matter what size you are, if they start opening their mouth and it is truthful and it is coming from a place where they believe all of that, then that person will be listened to. And then that person, moment by moment or slowly, people will start paying attention to that.
I have a question for you. Did your professor talk about baldness?
We didn't mention it, no. But
You know how many bald American presidents there have been? Anybody?
A lot.
Probably none.
One. Eisenhower, right? And he was a war general, so he gets a pass. Right? We have a lot of preconceptions that we bring to these issues.
I think it's like, he had some freedom.
Hi, I'm Elena. I'm a first year in the college. Thank you all for being here. I think earlier one of you talked about the example of politicians often not wanting to admit how much their fashion is intentional or impacting what they're doing. And it made me think about how in Hollywood, I think it was Reese Witherspoon a few years ago at the Oscars, started a movement or, some sort of slogan that was like behind the dress, ask what's behind the dress. And there was a big push in this other, very public sector, arts and creatives, to ask women, not just about fashion. So kind of like the opposite flow of things. So I'm wondering, have any of you ever experienced, a situation where you feel like someone is focusing too much on the fashion that you're wearing, or, yeah.
You know what politicians are really good at? You can correct me if I'm wrong. But they're really good at answering the question they want to answer and not necessarily the questions that's asked, right? And this is one of the things I've always thought. Actually, the fashion question can be an enormous opportunity, right? I mean, say you are Jill Biden, say you want to promote sustainability or, re-wearing things or investment in clothing. And someone says, oh, what's that great dress that, Ms. Biden wearing to the state dinner? She could say, oh, it's by this. It is 10 years old. I had it in my closet. Let me tell you about these great, the great things we're doing with sustainability. Here is our agenda, right?
Right.
It doesn't, who made your dress or what it is does not have to be the end of the answer. It can just be a way into a much more interesting answer. And that to me is what I sort of wish for in this conversation.
And I do think that politicians are beginning to understand the sustainability and the awareness of what fashion brand and what they wear, that combination. And so that there's a much bigger dialogue, like you're saying, in terms of, oh, wait, that label doesn't believe in climate change or fashion, that what they do in their fashion takes too much, raw denim to convert into other denim. And so I'm not going to support that brand. I'll support these brands, which then have a better, awareness of what they're doing to child labor or not to labor or to, any of those sorts of kinds of things. It opens a whole new dialogue.
Yeah, or this is, this dress is by this amazing young designer who was a dreamer, who came from here, and
Right.
let me tell you about their business, and there's so many ways into a conversation, and in fact, fashion can be the very best starting point because it's so deceptively easy.
I think you should counsel Jill Biden. I think so. I think that's really a great idea.
Thank you.
Teachable moments.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for being here. My name's Colin. I'm a second year in the college. And I was wondering, so in all the spectacle around George Santos, I feel like there's been a lot of attention given to his fashion. The quarter zips, the tie under the sweater, under the jacket, and also, that playing into, hidden parts of his identity, maybe being a drag queen at one point, and also these constructed parts of his identity as an affluent, preppy, educated investment banker. And I was wondering, how do you think that the discourse around his fashion has played into the larger discourse around the George Santos controversy?
New Yorker.
Who wants to take that one?
Well, you guys are New Yorkers.
If you were designing a character, would you design one that looked like that? Oh.
A year ago, probably not. Now, yes. He has given us the opportunity to see something in a different way. But he has all the, he's wearing the half zip that the guys on Succession wears. He's wearing a Burberry scarf. He's wearing a trench. He's wearing, it's like his pants are too tight. There's like, it is interesting to see some of, like, if you really start dissecting certain things, I don't know that he's necessarily aware of what he has and how he has combined it. I don't think he's that smart. That he's aware really of what his dressing is doing and what
I totally disagree with you.
Really?
Yeah, I think the greatest con men in history know how to dress the part. I think he's dressing a part.
I guess, but I don't know. It goes back to that thing. Is he? Yeah, I guess he's in on the con, but I guess. Yeah, stealing one's roommate's clothes to project an image, sure, I guess.
I do think like we're all suckered in by the first impressions we form of people, right? And when people play into our preconceptions of how a certain job or individual should look, we are more likely to give them the benefit of the doubt.
True. Well, because what you were saying, you dress for the job you want.
Right.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah, second year. Thank you all for being here. I had to write my question down because I was worried I was going to forget it. But do you think that the way that we scrutinize fashion, which seems like pretty intrinsic to American culture and politics, is a factor that self-selects candidates who have the means to express themselves the way they want and don't have to worry about money as a factor for presenting themselves?
Yeah, actually, the economics of fashion when it comes to being a political candidate, I think, are something we never discuss enough. Because as you pointed out, Cheri, I think it's expensive to wear, to have a wardrobe of different, not wearing the same thing every session, and yet, we do not pay our congresspeople particularly well.
Yeah, I don't know enough about other government and governments and what the fashion, how that plays into it. Well, you might. I don't know.
No, look at every state dinner the first lady has to dress up for. Those dresses are not cheap. They're very expensive.
But they can be donated to the archives.
Oh, without question,
And if they are donated, they are not bought.
But I think you can dress nicely, more economically than you used to be able to. Every holiday, every Christmas, the president invites members of Congress and one guest to the White House for a holiday dinner, and it's formal. And I did Rent the Runway. Is how I only own 2 fancy gowns, and I actually wore one of them 2 times. But so that's what I did. I did a Rent the Runway, and I went with my husband, and there was a guy named Vern Buchanan, who's a member of Congress from Florida, and his daughter was there, and his daughter's probably in her 30s, I'm guessing, and she had the same Rent the Runway dress as I did. And my husband goes, there's a much younger woman over there that's got your same dress on. And you know what? And I just joked with her. I'm like, hey, rent the runway? And she goes, yeah. And so we did a selfie. But you know, but I really do think that you can actually dress pretty nicely economically. There's a secondhand store in Eastern Market, which is in Washington, D.C., that I can tell you a lot of my friends who are members of Congress go there and get used clothes that were probably turned in by other richer members of Congress who were tired of it.
What's it called?
I think it's called Clothes Encounter. But it's in Eastern Market.
Write it down.
And it's actually really, really not, like you can get really nice clothes there for not that expensive. And again, a lot of women members of Congress give their clothes, or I guess, I don't know if they sell them or what, but a lot of women members of Congress buy them there as well.
Okay, well, I think on that genuinely insider tip
Yeah.
that I am going to remember.
All right.
We're going to thank our panelists for being here, and thank you guys. Thank you guys all for coming and listening.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.